Hello everyone, I'm Jeff Hoffman live from the Florida Public Radio Emergency Network. We just provided a live update to our NPR stations across the state. We have breaking news on major Hurricane Irma, and the biggest news of all is that a Hurricane Watch has now been issued. You'll see it on your screen right here. Hurricane Watch is now issued for South Florida from Jupiter Beach South and Bonita Beach South. Jupiter Beach on the east coast, Bonita Beach on the west coast. It includes the Florida Keys and Lake Okeechobee. That is new from the National Hurricane Center for Hurricane Irma. We also have a storm surge watch issued for the same areas. That's the counties are shaded in, but this is for the coastal areas, for basically generally the same areas of South Florida, including the Keys and much of southeast Florida as well. This is the satellite view and the advisory from the National Hurricane Center as of the 11 o'clock advisory. Actually, that is not correct. The storm data has not changed there. It's down to 175. So I'm going to need to quickly change that down to 175 are our winds from the National Hurricane Center as the storm is now moving to the west-northwest at 16. So there we go. We got the data updated. 16 to the west-northwest, and it is the pressure down to 921, or it's come up just a bit, and you can see it's still a very strong Category 5 hurricane. Just because it's come down a few miles per hour doesn't mean anything in terms of the storm preparation as we prepare for landfall in South Florida. And here is the actual updated cone from the National Hurricane Center as of their 11 o'clock advisory. And there's not been any significant changes. Cindy, I know you were watching. This is meteorologist Cindy O'Quinn. I know you've been watching it all morning. I haven't seen any major changes from this.
No, the biggest change was overnight. It became a little bit less organized, and you were taking a look at some of that sort of seeming the breaking apart on the edges of the storm. But the biggest news is that it still remains a very powerful hurricane, and we're looking at wind speeds of 175 miles per hour. So even though it went by Puerto Rico, went by parts of the Dominican Republic, it really didn't downplay that storm very much at all. And the biggest message we're trying to get across is that it's going to be a very strong Category 5 R4 hurricane by the time it reaches Florida to make landfall, because it's going to be in a very favorable environment over the next 3 days. And we're talking the warm waters, you've got the right temperature, and there's not going to be a lot of shear. There's a very little bit that's really going to be affecting that storm. So as you take a look there at the track of Irma, they're expecting those wind speeds around 145 as they're expecting to make landfall on Sunday. In fact, right now that latest forecast puts that landfall Sunday morning, not far after sunrise as we're looking at South Florida. But you're actually going to start feeling some of those tropical storm force winds as early as Saturday morning. Jim.
And we're going to go through that briefly. We're not going to be taking any questions on this. This is a very brief update, but we appreciate the sharing of this information. Now, I kind of think some people might sometimes wait until they see the official advisory or the watch in the morning. This is not a warning yet, but we're expecting warnings to be issued. But this is a hurricane watch. And if you're just tuning in or just pulling us up here on Facebook, here's the areas now under the hurricane watch from the National Hurricane Center. All the areas you see shaded, I think, and there's the areas in the tropical storm watch. For storm surge watch, sorry, that's a big difference. Storm surge watch for much of South Florida. So this is new from the National Hurricane Center. This is the latest model runs. We like to look at these just for clarification on confidence, and there is quite a grouping. But I have noticed one thing that's bothering me quite a bit, Cindy. And you were up early this morning, and you told me about this. The National Hurricane Center made it very clear that this is not a slam dunk on East Florida yet.
No, because if it slows down and makes that right-hand turn, if it takes longer, then it's going to put it more out to the Gulf of Mexico and potentially do that track, then it puts it over to southwest Florida.
Yeah, and look at the European. You know, the European is now starting to show more of a leaning to the west, possibly moving over Cuba, and that puts the Gulf Coast at play here.
Right, it does put the Gulf Coast. And then, of course, you have most of the model consensus that's taking it around the state, but if it takes that right-hand curve sooner, then it actually puts it more out towards the Atlantic Ocean. And with that hurricane watch that we've issued right now, that means that we will see hurricane conditions in South Florida within 48 hours. So very important that we're going to get that message across.
I want to show you, this is what we showed last night. I think a lot of people on our Facebook Live last night found this beneficial. When you see the yellow move over your hometown, that's when the tropical storm force winds will be arriving, and this is when preparations and evacuations should absolutely be completed. We've got Miami and the Keys by Saturday evening. That's a little bit ahead of time now than what we talked about yesterday. We've got Sunday morning across southeast Florida. And then, of course, the tropical storm force winds will spread north from there. This is a new model, and I'm going to have to take some time later this afternoon to look into more details. We're gonna really work hard this afternoon for more specifics. I know, folks, you got a lot of anxiety still. I want to know how bad it's going to be in my backyard. It's still too early because how severe the impacts will be hinges greatly on the exact track and the timing.
Right.
But we do have confidence enough in the earliest arrival of tropical storm force winds. You could recap
Right.
those from this morning.
Again, what you're looking at there on the future winds is that we're expecting this is when it's most likely, but when I'm saying as early as, it means that additionally 12 hours earlier, 15, 16 hours earlier, we could actually see those tropical storm force winds. One thing the hurricane has not shown is it has not really slowed down yet. There is expecting to be some slowing down in its movement right before it makes that right-hand turn and then begins more of its northward direction to the state of Florida.
This is a raw model output, not a forecast. I do believe it's under forecasting a little bit the extent of those tropical storm force winds, but basically you can see that we're looking at tropical storm force winds up to the I-4 corridor by midday Sunday, and then up to northeast Florida by Sunday evening. I want to go over to the iComputer, our iSource. Our team has done a great job of basically giving you the most recent, go to the I if you can, Jonathan, most recent information from mandatory evacuations from Miami-Dade. This is literally just a document we're internally keeping updated. Mandatory evacuations for zones A and B, Broward County voluntary evacuations of mobile homes, Collier County voluntary evacuations, Monroe County mandatory, and as you know, we just got some updated information on watches and warnings. Lee, was there anything else in this document I need to scroll through that you had helped us? The evacuations is the most important part, right? Okay, so yeah, we just passed those along. We're going to wrap up here, go back to source one so we can quickly just get a recap. Tropical advisories and watches have been issued now. So we have now a hurricane watch for areas of South Florida, and that includes the West Palm Beach, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Naples, and we have a tropical or a storm surge. I got to get that out of my head. Storm surge watch. This is a new product from the National Hurricane Center for much of South Florida, and those are issued because of major Hurricane Irma still likely to have a direct influence and a direct impact on residents of South and Southeast Florida.
And a lot of evacuees already on the roadways. It's taking 4 hours just to go from Orlando to Gainesville. So doubling the time and going to be tripling as we continue.
And confirmation, I think, has been given for our Gainesville audience on cancellations of UF classes on Monday. So that's some. I know we have a lot of folks watching from there. All right. Thank you, Jonathan, our producer, and our team, Grayson and Lee and Nicolette. Thank you, Cindy. We'll be back with another Facebook Live this afternoon after the midday models come in, and we can really start to hopefully have some confidence in the exact track. But, folks, it is still highly uncertain which side of the peninsula, or maybe just the middle of the peninsula, gets the worst in South Florida from major Hurricane Irma. That'll be it for now.